Hermetic principles are powerful because they allow those who understand them a new functional paradigm in which to view and play with reality. I don't believe people truly understand Hermetic principles until they can make practical use of them, and I have not found a more practical principle to understand than that of rhythm. He who understands the principle of rhythm has optimum power over his own being. The principle is as follows: everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. This reminds me of the passage in the book of Ecclesiastes in the King James Bible. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. Let's imagine a pendulum swinging from left to right. All things within the universe swing as the pendulum swings. Let's imagine that the bottom represents life circumstances, good times and bad times. You and I exist higher up on the pendulum as being caught in the swing. Where God exists, even higher, is the source of it all. Occult practitioners seek to rise and fall on the pendulum to maintain a steady state of mind or circumstance. This is the use of principle against principle stated within the Kabbalion. This is all a little too woo-woo to be practical though, so here's an example of how to use this principle. Our brains create feedback loops that make up our unique minds. What's wonderful about our brains is that we can hold mental states using both higher and lower reasoning. Lower reasoning being our more animalistic behaviors such as fight or flight, mating behaviors, and homeostatic processes such as breathing. Our higher reasoning allows us to speak, problem solve, and simulate future hypotheticals. Breathing is the most direct and beautiful way we can experience the merging of these systems, and despite what many people may believe, conscious control over one's breath is the beginning of deeper subconscious control and control over their own body. Don't believe me? Just ask Wim Hof, the athlete who holds the current records for climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in shorts, running a half marathon above the Arctic Circle barefoot, and standing in a container while covered with ice cubes for more than 112 minutes.
Now, I found a very effective way how to deal with this deregulative through stress coming in chemistry inside of our physiology. Body and mind are suffering normally of this wrong chemistry. And with this one, with these exercises I'm going to show, you are able to regulate your chemistry in the depth.
The flow of the breath out and in exists as a perfect example of the principle of rhythm manifest within our own bodies. All life starts with an initial breath that it inevitably pays back to the universe. Simple stimulation of the phrenic nerve, as explained by neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, is another example of a rapid physiological way one may change their emotional and mental state.
The physiological sigh is a pattern of breathing that we all engage in deep sleep when levels of carbon dioxide in our bloodstream get too high. We, or our dogs, you can see your dog do this, will do a double inhale followed by an extended exhale. Children or adults for that matter that are sobbing and lose their breath, so to speak, will also do a double inhale exhale. That's the spontaneous execution of what we call the physiological sigh. The reason it works so well to relax us is because it offloads a lot of carbon dioxide all at once. And the way it works is the following. Our lungs are not just two big bags of air. We have all these little millions of sacs of air that if we were to lay them out flat, they would be as big as about a tennis court or so. The volume of air, therefore, and the volume of carbon dioxide that we can offload is tremendously high, except that we get stressed as carbon dioxide builds up on our bloodstream, and as kind of a double whammy, these little sacs deflate. Now, when we do a double inhale, so I'll do this now twice through my nose, or you could do this, or you could do it through your mouth, but it works best through the nose. It's inhale, and then you sneak a little bit more air in at the very end. When you do that, you reinflate those little sacs. And when you exhale, then you discard all the carbon dioxide at once. So the simple way to describe this protocol is that unless you are underwater, you do a double inhale followed by an extended exhale, and you offload the maximum amount of carbon dioxide. And we found in our laboratory, and other laboratories have found, that just 1, 2, or 3 of those physiological sighs brings your level of stress down very, very fast.
There are certain rises and falls within our systems that cannot be changed. They can only be strategically ridden. The opponent process of our brain, for example, causes our mind to flow with the tides of pleasure and pain. Neuropsychologist Anna Lemke explains this hedonic treadmill.
In your brain, there's a balance. When we experience pleasure, the balance tips one way. When we experience pain, it tips the other. It wants to remain level, or what's called homeostasis. If I do something pleasurable, like eat a piece of chocolate, I get a little tip to the side of pleasure, and my brain adapts to that phenomenon. And I imagine that is these little gremlins hopping on the pain side of the balance to bring it level again. But the thing about the gremlins is they like it on the balance, so they stay on until the balance is tipped an equal and opposite amount to the side of pain. If I wait long enough, the gremlin hops off and balance is restored. But if I continue to consume chocolate in ever larger amounts to overcome the tolerance, then I end up with enough gremlins on the pain side of my balance to fill this whole room. And I'm essentially in a dopamine deficit state with a balance tilted to the side of pain. Now I have to keep using not to feel good, but just to feel normal.
Anna goes on further to explain how she rises above her human condition by simply accepting that human life is tilted towards pain.
Invite pain into your life. My belief that we are really wired for suffering, and we're wired for friction in our lives, friction that we don't have now, and that in order to remain healthy because of this mismatch between our wiring and our modern ecosystem, we have to really simulate, recreate difficult things in our lives in order to be healthy. And so that can be things like intensive exercise, intensive creative pursuits that require sustained attention, ice cold water immersion, which actually upregulate dopamine levels. And that's what we want, right? Because then we have more access to pleasure and we're more resilient in the face of painful stimuli.
This ties in with the Buddhist noble truth of suffering. The first truth is called suffering, or dukkha, which teaches that everyone in life is suffering in some way. The principle of rhythm manifests in all things, from the spiraling of our galaxy, the rotation of the earth creating sunrises and sunsets, our circadian sleep cycles, the tides of our oceans, all the way to the vibration of our atoms. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. By looking at ourselves and the world through the paradigm of rhythm, we can become far better at manifesting our desires. Every environment presents its own rhythms and harmonies to us that we may decipher and surf reality like a wave. No matter what we do, the rhythm is in us, but we, as higher beings, gifted with mind, can rise upon the pendulum and cultivate our own experience. You know the old saying, when God shuts a door, he opens a window. To a simple mind, the window is just a window, a way to view the outside world. To the occultist, it's just a tight squeeze between ourselves and freedom. The other options we have in life may not be comfortable, but they are there, and they've always been there as a means to transcend the rhythm. Whatever current patterns you may be suffering with can be overcome so long as you continue to look and are willing to abandon the old rhythms you identify with. Life's a wave, my friends. Be brave and ride it.